misconception about programming that we only take films that are 14 minutes long. That's not true. Yes, like obviously films will probably always be a little bit shorter, but definitely believe in like the film needs to be the length that it needs to be. Length does come into consideration because if we love your film and it's 40 minutes, then that's 2 or 3 other filmmakers that won't have that same opportunity. But for me, there's not a perfect 12-minute, 15-minute short.
I'd say most of it stems from Vimeo's analytics about watches.
Amen.
You'd be writing those emails like, you didn't watch my movie. But listen, I think the misconception is that, you know, we would want to not watch your movie because as scared as you are that we aren't seeing what you're putting out there, we are scared of missing something. Yeah. So we're looking really, really hard. In fact, that's kind of the whole job. So just know, if we've downloaded it because we're going to be on the plane or we're watching it sort of in our watch later, you know, it doesn't show up on the Vimeo watched.
Well, that was one of the ones I was going to use, definitely. I would say the other one is not always the case, but for most of us is the case. We don't individually pick films. So just because I love your film doesn't mean it's going to make it, because that would be impossible, especially after 23 years. I love so many of you. I don't want to be the person to say yes or no. I need a team built around me. And all 3 festivals where I program, there are a team of people weighing in, and there's a cumulative process that leads to which films get selected. So thinking that programmers pick films, I think a lot more of our work is actually what to do and how to package them in the best light once they have been selected by the team. That's where the programming part comes in.
Yeah. To the Vimeo analytic point, also something to keep in mind is like for Nashville, right? Like if you're looking on the analytics and you see that nobody in Nashville has viewed your film, it's also because the fact we have like a pre-screening team of about, 50 to 60 people all across the country. So you might have someone who's viewing a film for Nashville that's based in LA or New York. So just keep that in mind. But also for me, just that because a film isn't accepted, it's not about us thinking quality versus just not quality. There's so many other things that go into the decision-making process. So your film could be technically and amazing, but it might not be a fit for our festival, and it has nothing to do with if the film is good or bad.
I would say that you don't need a ginormous, massively famous name attached to your short. I think that's something that most people think, okay, I need someone who's worked on 3 Oscar award-winning films if I want to be guaranteed into a festival. That's definitely not the case. We consider each of the films individually for what they are as the films, not necessarily the names attached to them, especially certain last names. So yeah, just know that if you have a big name attached to your film, if you don't have a big name attached to your film, they're all being considered the same.
Questions? Next questions? All right.
So on Film Freeway, there's always that option to submit a optional cover letter. Do you guys read those? And if so, what do you look for?
I actually love this question because cover letters are fairly important to me, but I do not read them before I watch a film ever. That cover letter becomes important if your film has scored well enough that we're seriously considering it, then it's your chance to plus your film. Is there some reason our festival, your producer is from Cleveland? There are all those kind of things you can tell us, which is why I also think it's important to stop when you do your cover letter and think, even if you have a big, long, generic one, is there a paragraph you can add that is specific to that festival? Are there plus reasons? It's my personal story. All those things I don't look for. The film has to stand on its own. But as a team, we know we want to be able to add those other pluses. What are the other factors for us to consider? And usually they live in the cover letter.
Thank you so much for being here. I just have one question. Do premiere statuses matter?
For us, they don't, but it is part of the consideration. So South by, we officially don't have a premiere status requirement for short films. If we love the film, we're going to program it. That said, if it has played at 15 other festivals and had a healthy festival run, we are looking for films that haven't been as exposed, because we're thinking of our audience and also the industry. If we're doing a program of nothing but best of shorts, then the industry doesn't have a reason to come to South by. So, no requirement, but if the film is perfect and it happens to slot in the program, we will program it, even if it's played at a lot of festivals.
I think it's kind of good to pay attention to, because the question behind the question is, when you're building your strategy, should you be, you have an invitation in front of you, should you take it, should you not? My advice is to not be precious about it if you can avoid it. Certainly don't apply anywhere that you're not going to be able to show, so just pay attention to those requirements. Most of them are listed on the website. But I don't think there's often not a reason to accept an invitation from a festival that's, basically writing you saying, hey, we get what you're doing and we want to support it. I think a lot of times filmmakers kind of agonize over these decisions, is it going to be my first showing at, this place? Is that going to be the right start? Is that going to harm my premiere status moving forward? It's like, no. I think a lot of people don't realize that these are reciprocal relationships. Even to Paul's point about what you put in your cover letter, showing and expressing that you understand the work that goes into making a festival, that you understand maybe the editorial point of view of a festival. This is part of that too. If they're hitting you up saying, hey, we're inviting you, you should say yes,
Yeah, I would add to that it's part of the homework. I don't think there are nearly as many festivals left right now that care as much as they once did. There are a few really big ones, and if it's important to you to take your shot at those, time your strategy to do so. I just said to someone last night, don't make your film and finish it 8 months before the big festival you wanted to be in, because you're going to be sitting on a film for 8 months, because you can't say yes to anybody until you find out if that big festival takes you. So make it part of your strategy. Most of us now don't. We'll play films that are online if they're that good, because we know the audience coming to our festival, that's not how they consume short films. So I'm never worried that they will have seen it on YouTube or somewhere else. My festivals don't care. I also respect the ones that there's a reason they're doing it. If you dig, you'll find out, but there are very few of them left.
Yeah. I'll just add to that, on Film Freeway, the section where you can fill in where your film has screened, I find that really helpful. I like to see that as a programmer, so.
For AFI Fest, we don't have any geographic premiere requirements for short films. We really just have, as far as eligibility goes, a date cutoff determined by the previous year. So I often get emails asking if, the same exact question, if premiere status matters. I say, please accept any and all invitations before Fest, and if you want to go live on YouTube or something like that, please, by all means. Anything that you think is best for your festival circuit, because it is your film, do what is best for it.
So I have a question for Lauren. You mentioned that it, might not mean that your film is good or bad if you were accepted. So what factors go into considering if a film is right for your festival?
Okay, I'll answer this, but then I need your guys' help as well. There's so much, I feel like, and every festival is completely different. I would say, other factors are if there's a sidebar, like a genre sidebar that we're looking for, whether it's, horror or US indies, that goes into consideration. I think every festival and town has their own kind of vibe and feel, so that also goes into it. I feel like for Nashville, we, kind of like the quirky spirit in a movie. We kind of like to program, a little bit more of maybe comedy or dramedy than maybe some other festivals do. We have a music documentary feature competition. I know this is for shorts, but I'm just saying, I would do your research about that festival and see what types of competitions they have, anything in their mission statements that call out what they're about, what they stand for. I think those are all things that can maybe help you along your submission journey to better place your film at a festival that will probably want to program it. Does that make sense? Thanks.
That was a great mix of both how what particular programs they're going to program will affect it. If it's someplace that does 15 programs, but 3 of them are genre, obviously a lot of more genre films are going to get in overall. Also taking a look at like how all of my festivals program short programs as mixtape programs. But the process internally is to know all the beats we want in every program. So we're not picking the best 80 films that we see. We're looking for what are the best 10 comedies, what are the best 10 documentaries, what are the best 10, and then even at that, right, it's going to be human beings are making the selection, so it's a very subjective process. My team in Cleveland in particular, where we get tons of submissions, we're always like, we could program this festival again, and half the people would think the second lineup was better than the first one that we chose, because your audience is just as subjective as the jurors are that are picking the films.
Can I add on to that too, real quick? I mean, I'm in agreement that you definitely need to do your research on each festival that you do end up submitting to. Most festivals will have the archive of the previous year's program too, if you want to like take a scope of that. And I think like a question we often get is like, what will get my film into programs? And I wish we had like a set criteria of like A, B, C, D. It would make our jobs like a lot easier. But as Paul said, film is a subjective medium. There's no like specific thing that we're looking for. So, yeah.
I'm curious how carefully film festivals look into the marketing efforts for a short film, namely a social presence, documenting the process along the way. I've had a number of conversations with various filmmakers about that, and I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I mean, for us, in the programming area, like it has zero effect in what we're programming, but I do think it's really important once you are selected for a film festival to have those things to help promote you. I think that's another misconception about getting accepted into a film festival is that the festival is going to be marketing your film for you. A lot of work is going to be on the filmmaker and your team and hiring a publicist to get your film in front of the public. Like, we're providing the platform, but those are the tools that are going to help get the audience engaged and excited to be in the theater to see it.
Hello. You just said that very often you see some films that are amazing, but it doesn't fit to the selections or the program. Do you, as programmers, connect to each other or communicate? Look, it doesn't fit to us, but maybe to you, or the film remains that film that was never seen.
We all talk to each other. You have to. It's a really small world. And honestly, you know, another thing that you might learn from hearing from us directly is, you know, when we miss out on getting a film into the festival that we really love, like, it breaks our hearts too. And if we're reaching out to you and we're saying, you know, if we write you a personal rejection, for example, that's probably somebody telling you like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I tried. I really liked your movie. And I can't tell you how many times, I mean, you know, at a place like Sundance, you know, we're at the top of the year, we have 17,000 submissions. By the time that, you know, we're finished with our process, you know, we've seen so much of the work that's going to circulate in the year. And most of us do have, you know, regional gigs, or, you know, talk to people who program regional festivals, or are just hit up by buddies who are doing, you know, someone will be like, hey man, I'm doing an installation about sled dogs at the Alaskan Museum. Like, do you have any shorts about that? I'm like, yeah, here are 5. They're all very good. So there's totally a sort of a network that's happening all the time that we're sort of trafficking in the films that we appreciate and finding ways that we can support them, even if not sort of directly with the festival consideration that's in front of us when we encounter that film. I think it's a good thing to remember, because as you go out there and you're trying to put this circuitry together, you know, of course there's going to be a lot of rejection no matter what. I mean, the numbers are just tough. And you should just know that no matter what the specific outcome of any of those processes are, it is always strong, positive, forward momentum for you to have your work watched by people who track and scout talent for a living, full stop. So even if it's, you know, this moment that matters, or sharing your film in this specific year, or 5 years down the line. I can't tell you how many times we've seen shorts from people that we don't, you know, we've rejected them for years, and then we premiere their first feature at Sundance. You know, the relationships really do matter. We are tracking things over the long term. And so yeah, it's all good to keep tabs on, because we do.
I'm sending films to people all the time, to other programmers. If I know it's maybe not a fit for the specific festival that I'm programming for, but I know that it'll fit better for another one, yeah, why not?
So along the lines of receiving a personalized rejection email from the programmers, does that hold any weight when you submit your next work to the festival?
It does with me. Every year, one of the hardest moment of my year is writing what I call the hot list email for Cleveland. It goes to all those films that could have been the second version of the festival. And we mark that as a filmmaker. And I ask in the email, please, if you have a new film, reach out to me personally in an email, because we're gonna skip the first group will still see the film, but the programming team will watch it no matter what they say, because we see you, we see that you have the quality that you're doing work at, and we don't want to let the less experienced previewers eliminate it before we see it. So I ask directly in that email, please do that. The other part of that goes with what Ash said, I have about 6 or 7 fellow programmers who know me really well, who get my hot list every year and reach out to all of you. And one particular festival that's really good, and I'm not gonna call them out, regularly reaches out and says, you didn't pick these 2 or 3 films? We're definitely playing it. And it's in a smaller lineup than mine, and they go on to win awards elsewhere in that. So that's how subjective it is.
I think it's a good time to share that I actually got married to someone who I met on a rejection email thread. I think it matters a lot.
I can't beat that.
No. It's a hot thing to drop on a panel. I know.
Hi. Does timing matter? I know that there are tiers for payment, but is it important to get it in as soon as that first deadline, or if it's rolling, is it truly rolling and it doesn't matter as much? Thank you.
Different festivals work differently. I think there's a panicked conception that if you submit it in the late deadline, everything's already programmed. It's commonly not the case. The reason it matters is for our personal humanity. It's I think something filmmakers don't necessarily always realize, but the volume that we're watching at during these periods is really, really high. At Sundance we're watching 8 to 10 feature films a day, 7 days a week for 3 months. That does something to a person psychologically. So it's not, if you submit it in the late deadline, we are going to watch it. And it's the same as the Vimeo link. To hear someone question that is irritating because we're spending our lives, watching. The question for you is under what circumstances would you like your film to be considered? And look, it's just that at the end our bars are set. We're having more, focused conversations. We know what the conversations are. We know what the topics are. Things are starting to take shape. And, it's never going to take a no to a yes or a yes to a no to submit at any given deadline. It's just not. But if you would like to A, save us a little bit of trouble, or B, have more confidence that your film is kind of being watched with a little bit more breath, submit earlier than later, especially if it's not, a material difference in the cut that's going to change that deadline for you. But yeah, it's certainly something that is on a lot of people's minds, and that's always a good time to reach out and talk to programmers too if you have questions about the timing, the windowing, the shape of your cut, if you're still in post. Those are things we're really willing to talk about, and sometimes it's nice for us to be able to share a little bit about our process and vice versa.
Next question over here. Hello.
Thank you.
This way, I know. So quick question about feedback. So on my list of 50 film festivals, I think Cleveland was the only one that said, we will give you feedback if you write to us in this time frame. So if the festival does not specify that, is it appropriate to reach out for feedback? And if so, how long after the festival ends would you like that to happen? Yes, those are my 2 questions.
For us, we don't do feedback, mainly because we're making decisions specific for our festival, and we don't want you to take anything that we say as a reflection of your film, because it's your film, and the reason that we don't select a film, almost like we discussed earlier, isn't because of the quality of the film. A lot of it is just the volume that we have, or the program that we shaped didn't quite fit. So we used to do feedback back, I think maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and then we started phasing it out. And we felt a lot better about not giving that because we saw that we were giving filmmakers like indirectly wrong directions, and then they were altering their film, and it's like, oh, that's heartbreaking. Like, your film was perfect as is, and just because we didn't take it doesn't mean that it should have been altered. So that's why we don't do feedback.
There's also so many submissions that each festival is going through. I mean, as much as we probably would like to provide feedback, just know that, you know, we probably get hundreds and hundreds of emails of people that we would love to, but it's just not quite feasible. And if your film doesn't necessarily get into a program, that doesn't mean that it's like baseline bad or anything like that. It just maybe didn't work for us, and there will always be like a handful, or maybe for me like 30 each year. That's like the one that got away that I really, really was fighting for, that I would love to have programmed. It's just like, we don't have the number of programs where it's feasible, or just remember that each shorts program is around like 90 minutes, so we can only fit so many individual titles in there too.
And I would agree with what both Gabe and Nichole said, and also add that we do sometimes, like on special cases, but a regional festival like Nashville, we are such a small team behind the scenes, and it is just typically, with all the submissions we get and everything that goes into putting on the festival, it's just not really feasible for us to do that. But like Nichole said, we would love to for most, but we're just really small.
So since you called us out in Cleveland that we do it, let me explain what we do, because you're not hearing from me or the programming team. We built into our previewing process, we do an educational process for every year's group of volunteers. 150 to 200 people come on. Every short film is seen by 3 people. Those people, part of their role as a volunteer, what they agree to do, is to write a constructive feedback about the film they've seen. So we know we have access to them. They're right in Film Freeway. We cut and paste them, and we do it for 1 month. The month of May, there's somebody specifically assigned, although if you email me, I just do it myself because I can't stomach to send them the email when I have it at my fingertips. But it's what you're getting is the original 3 people that are volunteers from our community giving you constructive feedback. Like, they have hard rules. You can't say, this was a waste of my life. You know, it's always, here's what I liked, here's what I didn't like. It's like, no, we're trying to help the artists in any way we can, but qualifying, there's no way that my programming team could offer that kind of feedback because we watch way more films than those folks do.
Thank you. Hi. I have 2 questions, and I'll keep them very short. The first one is, Lauren and Nichole, you briefly mentioned how every festival is different, and Paul, you spoke about certain genres that are there in certain festivals, and you can submit based on that. But I just wanted to know, from these 5 festivals, what are your specific personalities when it comes to that festival? I know that we can do the research, but to be honest, a lot of them sound very similar, and it's very difficult to say, is your film good for South by, or is it good for Sundance, or where should you send it? And does that personality change over the years, or every year, maybe even, like, do you have themes or something that you're working with that we can keep in mind when we're submitting? And the next question is, let's say you have 2 or 3 films that you equally like, and you have to pick one, then what is the next thing that you look for in that film to make that selection? Thank you.
I always say, like Sylvia did, you can't describe it, but you know it when you see it, you know? And that's true of a Sundance movie. I think there's a lot of impressions of what that is, and what's cool and exciting about being a programmer is that you do get to shape that. So yeah, do things evolve every year? Totally. Different people are touching the program from our side. You know, when we're doing this work, I'd say, maybe this is controversial. Anna's my colleague at Sundance, so I keep looking at her to make sure I'm not saying anything too off base. But I'd say almost, in a lot of ways, like 70 or 80% of the program, I think, does come together on a functional level, where it's like, yeah, we know our festival, we know the editorial, we know what our audience expects from us, we know what we need to serve our industry. You know, a lot of those decisions are, you know, we're sort of stewards of a larger editorial idea, and then there's that 30%, and that's where we're fucking fighting it out, okay? And that's where each person is actually, putting their thumbprint on a program. So what was a Sundance movie 20 years ago is not what is a Sundance movie today. And part of that is each of us saying, well, this is the kind of movie I want to be a Sundance film. And so it's impossible to say what that is. And someone else on the panel said that it would be easier if we did have an answer to that question. It's probably one of the most common ones we get. But I am actually pretty proud that we don't, because what it means is we're not coming into the season with this prescriptive idea of, okay, this is what a good movie is, or this is what I'm seeking out. What we're actually doing is we are, opening ourselves up, becoming so porous, and taking in this crazy volume, this huge submission pool, and from there seeing what we encounter that is really exciting. And so it's indefinable because we don't actually make that call, you do. It's like, what do you know what I mean? What you got, serve it up, and we'll see if it, if it works for us. And so as far as what the next question would be, is like, you like something, then what's next? It could be any of those things that were spoken about already, genre, form, length, certainly in shorts. When you're talking about blocks, that's a huge, big deal. And then, yeah, it's like debate. You have to, we're all stepping up to the plate about these films, and so what's really cool about the process at Sundance specifically is it's run mostly on passion. So the question of whether you like something or not is kind of the most important question. There could be a film that is maybe weaker in certain ways or actually doesn't fit the program in certain ways, but if there's someone who just will not fucking let it go, I mean, that's going to make the difference in the end.
Yeah, I think that X factor he's talking about is resonance, and again, it's back to subjective. So different stories, different vibrations in your films are going to resonate with different people on different teams. That's why it's almost impossible looking at all our festivals to define, is there a vibe that goes with the festival? I think they're all over the place because the people inside that are picking the films are all wildly different. Having said that, I would say the two paths almost always to agree with him is that there's the easy ones, which is all 5 programmers have it at the top of their list, like it's in their first 20, those are going to make it. The rest of them are the ones that there's one person that will not let go. And many of those films do just as well. And what we've learned over the years is that there's going to be a bunch of people in the audience that have that same resonance. And while it may not find as many people, the 10 people that love it like no other. It's their favorite film. So it's that, yes, everybody loved it versus 10 people think it's their favorite film, best film ever kind of thing.
Because as programmers also, we're wanting to reflect the current time period and the art that's being submitted to us. You're submitting, so we want the art to speak to us of the moment, and that's where we want to make the programming decisions. And also, we're human too, and so when someone says, oh, this is a South by film, you're going to love it, I'm immediately just like, I probably won't. Just because you say I'm going to love it, I bet I won't. And, it's like you don't know what we like. But we do have an identity, and we understand that. But we also want to make sure that it always feels fresh to us, too. Like, we want to see something that gets us outside of our comfort area as well. And, in terms of, 3 films that we love and there's 1 spot left, there's not a magic bullet. It really comes down to, like, which of these films will be in conversation with the other films we've already picked in a program. So, yeah, I know, probably not a satisfying answer from any of us, but we all agree with each other, and it's just the truth.
Yeah. I would also kind of add to that too, if there's like 3 films. I think sometimes understanding the difference between like South by Sundance market film festivals, right? And then there's regional film festivals like Cleveland and Nashville. And so if, we're looking at 3 films and, 2 of them played Sundance and then the other one played South by, like, we might,
go with the Sundance movie. Yeah, it's a good idea.
What?
I said go with the Sundance movie. That's a good idea.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, we can't like have in our sections like 4 films that were at Sundance all together. I mean, we don't want to like be like, oh, they just regurgitated what is playing at Sundance or South by. So sometimes that premiere and where your film has screened can also come into play there. Also, kind of, I think Gabe said this a little bit earlier, but if a film hasn't had as much play and we're all in agreement that we love it, like that'll make it rise to the top 2. But I generally very much agree with also everything you guys just said.
That could be where the cover letter comes in and breaks the tie.
You're all hoping we're going to say, it's the EPK attached. That's when we turn there.
The EPK.
Usually when I'm programming, I'm trying to find as many different countries, as many different languages, as many different narratives. I mean, everyone here is probably a filmmaker, and you all have a different story to tell. So I'm always looking to like diversify our programs. And when it comes down to finally locking them down, and if I have like 3 that are considering placing into the program, and they're all like equally amazing, I think that is when, programming isn't just watching films. I kind of do wish it was, but it is a lot of discussions, and it is 2-hour-long Zoom calls of you like fighting for a specific title and being like, no, please, we need this with your team members, and plenty of after hours and phone calls late at night being like, it needs to happen now. So we're working on really tight deadlines. Every year, I think we can all agree the deadlines are always scary. But yeah, again, I wish there was like a set criteria of like, you need A, B, and C to get into every festival, but every festival's different.
But it's so case by case, it's like impossible to answer without films in front of you. And the same, in one world, you could say, okay, 3 films that are about the same topic, they might be in competition with each other. In a different year, you might start saying as a programmer, whoa, what's going on? People are really talking about this. Like, that's really important. I always think about like 2020, we had like 4 or 5 Mexican features, heading towards World Dramatic Competition. There was a moment where I think we were going to choose, and then we were kind of like, wait, we should show a bunch of these, because there's like something happening, like to Gabe's point, that we actually want to reflect. And so it's impossible to say, there's no rule. I think it would be comforting maybe if there were, but it's really, that's why we have jobs, is because there isn't just a formula of how it comes together. It's really taking a really, really broad vantage point and making editorial decisions from there.
It's also timing too. We've definitely had films where we passed one year and the next year resubmitted, and it worked. For whatever reason, maybe it worked for that time and place or the program, and then we did accept it. So definitely never give up on your film, and if it's a festival you want to be a part of, because every year is a clean slate and completely different.
Amazing. Hi, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I really appreciate it. My question is, for filmmakers who haven't been involved in Sundance programs or programs at any of your festivals, do you recommend, or what would you recommend to do to strengthen your submission or increase visibility beyond just cold submission, or do you guys prefer just cold submission? And then also, is there any other ways to get involved that you feel like are important to just like be a part of that community? And like, I'd love to hear from each of you speak to that. Is that a confusing question? I can run it back.
Do you mean like the programs of the Institute?
Yeah, I guess like the programs, because I know Sundance has like the Ignite Labs and all these other programs and stuff. And is there anything, even just if you're submitting a film, that you would recommend beyond just cold submission to like increase your visibility or, strengthen
good
your
question.
submission?
I think on the Sundance side specifically, and a lot of festivals that operate under larger nonprofit banners, the selection processes are actually really, really insulated from each other, and that's on purpose. It's church and state. So at Sundance, being part of the Director's Lab or the Ignite Lab actually doesn't guarantee that you're going to get into the festival, nor vice versa. So it's important to us that our curatorial independence is maintained on either side of those things. That being said, do we know of those projects well? But that's also our jobs to be doing research constantly on who's making what out there in the world. And so that's part of the answer to your question. I think one misconception about programming is that you have to know someone, and that's not really true, but it is true that it's our jobs to know you. So you make sense of that somewhere. It's like there's truths and falsehoods on both counts. But even being here today, we do these kinds of panels so that you do know us, so we do know you, and we're tracking and scouting constantly. So the thing that you can do, first of all, kind of the answer is no. The film is the movie, and that's really what it comes down to. What you can do is, I think, just reach out. Most programmers who are worth their weight are open to that. It's, if it is our job to know you, then you got to keep an open door, and we got to be looking under every rock, because we don't know where the next good movie is coming from, or we shouldn't think we know that. Maybe someone does. So yeah, reaching out and giving somebody like some color and context is really useful. You don't have to advocate for your film. I agree. Someone saying this is a Sundance movie. It's like, well, yeah, watch 800 features and then tell me if you think it is. So you don't need to advocate for your movie, but giving somebody a chance to get to know a little bit more about you, your work, why you've made the film that you've made, helps us just watch, again, under best conditions. So like, yeah, I'm about to press play. I'm watching 20 shorts in the next little while. Oh, this is the one that the person who asked that great question at Palm Springs Short. It's nice where you just put it kind of together and you're sudden, part of the struggle of watching so much is like, you're just like, what is this? I don't remember, I don't understand, or I don't know. And so just being able to kind of get that focus and that context around your short is going to give you a better chance of being, received in the best possible way. Of course, it's not true that everybody who's ever sent us an email is programmed. That would be crazy. Our lineups would look much bigger, if that were the case. So again, one of those things where it's not going to take a yes to a no or a no to a yes, but I think just making that contact for the immediate and then for the long term is always good.
AFI Fest is a part of the larger institute of the American Film Institute in LA, but being like an alumni of the institute doesn't immediately guarantee you getting into Fest. We do have a separate program for conservatory shorts, which are the thesis films for the graduating class that year, which are completely different from like the actual selected films for Fest. Yes. Oh, and I'm not afraid of a cold email either. Please, by all means. I recently had a cold email from someone I watched on YouTube in high school, and like really embarrassingly was like, hey, I really loved your vlogs when I was like 15. And he was like, oh, thank God. And also, I'm sorry, but please do that.
I agree. If you submit, please email and let me know that you submitted your film. Because yes, we do have thousands of submissions, but anyone that emails me, I probably would get to your film eventually anyway, but I do go and mark it and make sure, like, okay, this is in my queue.
Yeah, me
and
too.
a lot of times I will definitely send a personal note, even if we are going to pass on the film. So, yes, absolutely. I always say reach out.
And please be nice in those emails, too.
Because we do read them.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Sometimes I get like demands like, watch it. And I'm like, I will, but relax.
Hey, everybody. How are y'all doing? I guess this is a question for all of you, and this is going to be a random question. Are you always considering submissions that maybe have more deeper, resonant themes that you feel would hit you more, or sometimes do you just program stupid comedies that make you belly laugh and laugh so hard that you're crying? Very superficial, artificial stuff.
To make good mixtapes, I need all of those. So, and that's why I said we build a stack of like, okay, we're going to need this many comedies, we're going to need serious, thought-provoking dramas, this many docs, this many animated films, and within those, all those different beats can exist as well. So that's, there's a whole different kind of diversity as a programmer that you're thinking about that isn't about who made it or what's on screen. It's what thematically and tonally is going to be in this mixtape program, because I want there to be heavy rock and roll and opera in the program at some point, that, tonally, emotional-wise. So all of those is what we're looking for, and hoping to find the ones that are going to not just resonate with the people programming, but then with our audience, so that everybody involved in the festival has the best experience when they come.
And I love a comedy film too. I mean, I think a lot of the submissions we do get, they can get very, very serious very, very quickly. And when you're on your sixth short of the day that is about the horrors of the world, it can kind of get you down. So I do appreciate a comedy, and I think some levity within the program is also good, because when we're actually locking everything down and then you have the three about the world ending back to back to back, you do want to have maybe like a breath between those two.
And I would also just add to, like, in Nashville, we're programming for the film community there and, the arts community, but we're also programming for a very general audience too, that is not like in the film festival world, in the filmmaking world. So that's where, those great comedies come into play, because, as an arts nonprofit in a city that's not New York or LA, we need to consider, like, how do we reach these people who aren't in the festival scene and the filmmaking scene, and, get people to come out to the theater. And so we certainly consider films that are just lighter and more comedic.
That is the secret getting into a film festival, is making a comedy.
It's hard. To make a good one, yeah.
To make your jobs a lot easier. And I thought the answer to that would be to make better films, but it sounds like we're already doing that. So apart from that, is there anything else that we're missing out on that we can do to help make your jobs easier?
That's so nice. I know.
You know, when you do those, someone sort of already hinted to this, when you are communicating with us, when you submit, after you get rejected, if you get accepted, find kindness. Well, I promise you I'm going to be kind to you. And that includes if you aren't kind to me, because it's just part of my value system. But it goes a long way just to know that there's a kind person behind all these emails. I feel that. I guess they probably do as well, and that makes our jobs a whole lot easier.
Yeah, I think treating the process with some reciprocity goes a long way. And that's about, being kind, or even just saying what you just said, sort of recognizing that there are people on the other side doing this work. I think we're in a position of privilege because we have the great task in front of us to witness everything that you guys are putting together. And it's a big responsibility. But I think people sometimes have a feeling about us and our work because we're gatekeepers. One of our colleagues used to say, but we're also gate openers. And so I think it's preferential to be treated by filmmakers thusly, and just knowing that even if you're not in a certain moment, in a certain program, in a certain decision-making process, that there's a bigger in that's more important, which is like this, which is like you're in, we're all sitting in the same room, we're all working in the same industry, we're all hoping that independent cinema stays alive, which feels like the stakes are higher than usual these days. And so I think I most appreciate, that's the way to make your job easier, because that's why we do it. And it's what makes it fulfilling, is when we can see that sort of reflected back to us in the hearts and minds of the filmmakers we're working with.
Can I flip it and ask what your name is? Because that was a very nice question.
Hi, my name is Wale. I'm a writer-director. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for the nice
Wale's
question.
just been flagged on a million film freeway.
Someone had the mic over there already? Oh, yes. Sorry, I just couldn't tell if it was on. Hi, thank you all so much for your answers. These have been incredible. I'm also a film programmer, so I'm curious from all of your perspectives what advice you would have for emerging film programmers who are interested in getting involved in your festivals.
It's going to sound silly. It's going to sound silly, but just keep watching. I mean, when I first started out as a programmer, I was the AFI Fest intern back in 2018, which I don't know how I got it. I don't know why they hired me, to be honest. I was in college, undeclared, and this is, I'm just going to tell the story, even though it's the most embarrassing story ever, and I know this is going on YouTube later. I only applied for it because I saw a picture of Timothée Chalamet on a step and repeat with the... thank you. Who else did that? With the Fest logo in the background, and then I Googled them, saw that they were hiring an intern, and applied and got it. But after that internship, I just volunteered at a bunch of different places while I was still finishing up my degrees. And then eventually, once you make those connections with programmers at those festivals that you're volunteering with, keep those connections really, really tight, because we all know other programmers. Yeah. There's so many festivals out there, but we all know a ton of programmers. Like, the festival circuit itself is super, super small. So eventually those like volunteer positions might be, paid positions, and then higher and higher and higher, and you just know so many people. So just keep in touch with folks.
I would add too that if programming is where you're ultimately interested in being, don't be afraid to, get in the door doing something else at a festival, like volunteering or box office or theater floor managing, volunteer managing, anything like that, because it gets you into that, circuit of people, and you become familiar with them. And then when there is turnover in programming, it's always great to be like, oh my gosh, I know our theater floor manager was very interested in this. And also screening for festivals. I think most festivals have a screening team. I mean, we were all just kind of talking about the volunteers that we have to watch all of our films. So having a bunch of, screening experience is also really great. yeah, I mean, I started off as an intern at Chicago International, just kind of worked my way up from there. But I think it's all about just like being in the space and like making it known that you care and you're passionate.
If you love it, they'll find you.
Yeah.
Just keep showing people you love it. I mean, I still feel like an imposter 25 years later because I just love the films. And people go, wow, he loves them that much. Give him more to watch. Give him more to watch. You know what? He should lead the team. You know what? He should be the programmer. And I'm like, okay, I just love movies and I love the people who make them. That's my qualifications to be up here right now. That's it.
I would also say, make sure to go to other festivals and be in the audience, because as a programmer, you're kind of like on your own a lot of the times. We love the moments where we can talk with other programmers, but it's also good to be in the audience to know what's going to resonate as well. So don't forget to also be audience first.
Yeah, that's exactly the track I was going to go on to be maybe a little bit more philosophical, is to say, yeah, watch a lot. I think, the gift that programming gives us is, an ever expansion of our tastes and our interests. And, in a time where algorithm is really dominating how a lot of us are moving through media, we have this great opportunity to look so much beyond what we think we're interested in. We have to watch so many more movies than we think we want to. And then what you realize is, of course, you want to see things that you would never click on. A movie whose description seems absolutely antithetical to what you want to spend your evening doing. But that takes sort of muscle, and you have to build that up to kind of have the appetite, the aptitude to reach that far kind of outside of your comfort zone. And so I think to be a better programmer, that it's something that you can constantly be, the curriculum you can constantly be building for yourself if you're just looking kind of outside your zone of interest.
And get a pair of blue light glasses if you're gonna watch a lot.
And a good ophthalmologist generally, yeah, it's gonna be a long road.
Hi, I just want to respond to what you said, Gabe, with a question about emails. You mentioned that once we submit a film, we can email you personally and say, hey, we submitted, and therefore you can flag that in the film. But sometimes you can't find the emails. A lot of programmers don't list their emails. So unless certain filmmakers have the opportunity to come to film festivals like this and connect personally, you just don't have access to the programmers and their emails. So how do you go about that? And also, do all programs have the same attitude or opinion that you have in terms of, we're okay getting this cold email?
At our festival, absolutely, yes. So I am Gabe, Gabe, at SXSW.com. So luckily, I've got a very easy email, but if you didn't know my name or know that I was even a programmer there, we have a general email account, filmfest at SXSW, and I think most festivals do. Cold email that to let them know that your film is submitted, and then that will be emailed to the programmer, and then we will mark it there. So,
Yeah.
Yes, what he just said.
Yeah.
Hi.
You're Gabe at SXW too?
Yes, email me there.
I'm a producer, and I would like to know sort of like what my role and should or could be. And also I would like to know the role of like distributors, like that part of festivals, because usually we're completely broke when we finish the film, and then there's this potential investment that we sometimes feel we should do because it's easier to navigate, but then most of the time we don't have the funds for that necessarily. So does it, like, when you receive a film through a distributor, there's already a curation and stuff like that, so does it help you, like, look at maybe a bit more like seriously, or is it already sort of flagged when it comes through that door? Yeah.
It really depends. I mean, programmers, we're like essentially professional middlemen. And so unlike some people who have a positionality in the industry that kind of determines what kind of contacts they have, we talk to everybody. So yeah, we get films from producers, from directors, from rights holders, from distributors, and it all, I mean, in a way, the pressure or the forces are kind of equalizing. You know, we're kind of, everybody's knocking up on the door, so it kind of doesn't matter who it is. You know, we're going to answer or we're not, you know. So yeah, I mean, like, a lot of our work is about relationship management. So yeah, just like we would, you know, respond to a particular filmmaker who we have a long-term relationship with, if we have a distributor who, you know, whose taste we really like, yeah, that's going to be something that's of interest. You know, we'll watch your slate, but it's like what I said about the stones and turning things over before, that, you know, we're hunting far and wide, so it's not going to give you necessarily an edge. And then, yeah, as far as, you know, if you get into a festival, of course, we recognize, especially on the short side, you know, there's not always a lot of resource to put in to making the most of a particular engagement. But if you can try to drum something up, it can be really worthwhile. You know, a lot of times I see, especially in the shorts front, you know, you can really build momentum over the course of a cruise through the circuit. And filmmakers who are paying attention to being able, you know, even in their strategy, knowing that each invitation they get, they're going to be able to really cash in on. They're going to, you know, help with the marketing. They're going to promote the screening. They're going to go. They're going to be there. You know, that, I think, playing 5 festivals and really being able to be present in a particular way, both for the longstanding relationship with the festival and for the opportunities that may come out of it for you as a distributor or for the film team, is better than playing 20 festivals where you just send a file and you never think about it ever again, is my personal opinion. But, you know, I'm sure results may vary.
I think we have a microphone that's almost on over there, hopefully.
Hi. Thank you for, you know, this great panel. I just want to pick up on something you said before about resubmitting the film, that sometimes, you know, it's not the right year, or, you know, but it's a good film and doesn't mean that it might not go the next year. So is it okay, let's say you have a world premiere, or you have, you know, and then you start going through you know, depending on which festival you start, can you resubmit in case you were not in that year before, or the same year to that festival? Is that, because on you know, sometimes feature film, I mean, it's so political and different, sometimes it's not possible. So I just would like to understand a little bit more with you guys. Thank you.
For our festival specifically, I think as long as the film's been completed within the last 3 years, it's eligible. So feature film, I wouldn't resubmit, especially if you did have a premiere somewhere else. But in the short, since we don't have a premiere requirement, it's more if you feel that our festival is the right choice for you, and if you feel passionate about it, do resubmit. And it's also worth following up with an email saying, like, I resubmitted this, whether I've had a premiere or not. Just know that we are going to look at it with fresh eyes, even if we saw it last year and had passed on it.
I think it applies readily to when you're still cutting. We say that we accept resubmissions when there has been substantial change in the edit. And so that tends to be a good opportunity to re-engage.
So all 3 of my festivals would agree with what Ash just said. For sure, you could just resubmit it on your own if you've made some kind of changes to what the version. I would say if you haven't done that, all of mine will accept it, but typically I would ask you to reach out first and let my team gauge. I don't want you to pay for a fee. If our team really thinks it has a chance, I'll give you a waiver because I don't need you to pay more than once to do it. And every year, I know Cleveland, every year it's 3 or 4 films that we passed on the previous year that sometimes we reach out because the team's like, yeah, remember that one we didn't play? Can we ask for that one back? And so they stick with us. Even after the process, there's programmers that are going, and we always just send you a waiver and say, put it back in, no promises yet, but at least we're going to look at it.
Filmmakers invest a lot of time and money and in strategizing the film festival circuit. Do any of you have analytics or any kind of statistics, numbers, how impactful this is for a filmmaker or a short film after they've been at a festival or 10 festivals or never been at a festival? Do you know how, you know, what's the ROI basically for
Well, what do you want?
I think I want to be able to make more films, get them funded, broader audiences.
Yeah, I mean,
a career.
There's no way that we can capture that data, kind of period, full stop. But yes, of course, I think we see, especially at a place like Sundance, people launch large careers off of playing short films at our festival. You know, I think to the point of your question, it's smart to have an objective of what you want out of the festival circuit. Yeah, if what you want is to make $1 million and get your short distributed, I hate to tell you, it just might not be the best way to go. But there are so many other ways that you can find a really successful life for the film. You know, is it about reaching audiences? Yeah, of course we have ROI on that. We have the audiences that we can plug you into. Is it about networking and meeting with industry? We're doing it right now. So exciting! Congratulations on your career. You know, so I think being clear about what you actually want out of the process will help make sure that you are both selecting to submit to and attend festivals that are going to yield those best outcomes for you, whether they're, you know, places that focus really heavily on industry, whether you just want to show it to the, you know, the most number of people, or whether you have a short that you want to use as a calling card in conversations with industry. Guess what? That's great news because you already have that and it's done.
Ash had alluded to this in a previous answer as well, and I would love to jump on it because it's usually a question that comes up, and I think it's one of the most important parts, especially when what you want for ROI is to continue doing the work. Talking about being selective about what festivals you submit to with the idea of where do I want to go and what festivals create this kind of environment, because it's what's happening right here that is what the return on investment is. Because if I told you the number of films, this year we had 3 films in Cleveland that were made by people who didn't know each other when they came to Cleveland, and they made films together, and now they're back with those films. So you make these connections. You may be doing a different role in the next film with a different person you met that you're on the same page from seeing each other's art. It is that networking opportunity that goes with following your film. So that's part of the strategy, if that's what you want to do, is which festivals actually create these environments like ShortFest does, where there's a lot of things for the filmmakers to get together. It's a priority for all my festivals. Both the second 2 that hired me, I'm like, are we going to do things every night where the filmmakers can meet each other? If we are, then I'm in, because I'm here for, you know, in service of you and your art.
Yeah, I think too, it's also, like we've been talking about, it's all about what you make of it. I think Gabe was talking about this earlier of like, you know, just because your film gets into a festival doesn't mean like your job is done. Promoting for that specific city that you're in is so important. So your producers, your film team, or if you're just a team of one, you know, we always have people reaching out to us who've got their film in and say like, do you have any organizations, local organizations in town or local media outlets that you would recommend that we reach out to put the film on their radar? And so I think continuing to put in that effort and do that research and that outreach to the local communities where your film is being played makes a huge difference, because you're getting more eyeballs in front of your film that probably would not necessarily have been there had you not. So doing that work.
I think we're going to close it out with one last question right over here, and then we'll wrap it up.
Hi, I'm Egyptian American, so I've lived here, I've lived in Egypt, graduated from USC, now I'm living in Egypt and making shorts and working on features. And the short film that I produced is in the festival. And so I was wondering, you guys talked about dividing things up in terms of genres and how you program it. How does that work for programming international films versus American films? And then the second question is, how much of a crossover is there for international filmmakers and talent to like start trying to work in the American market, and how do you guys see that?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think because we are all American festivals, you know, there is definitely a slant towards U.S. films. And that means, you know, if half the program is U.S. and half is international, then every country in the world is fighting for, you know, part of the slice of the world pie. So that's a reality. It can tend to be also kind of a steeper competition. Many other countries in the world other than ours, you know, fund their films on a state level much better. And so the quality can be higher on a production level. And so those competitions are really steep. But the point of inviting international filmmakers to American festivals a lot of times is providing opportunities for them to connect with American industry. You know, like Paul was saying, it's a big part of us as festival organizers, what we're looking to do for you. At Sundance, we have, you know, particular one-on-one meetings that we actually curate by hand as programmers to get people connected who are coming from the international community with US-based companies that we think that they might have a future working together with. So it's just one example of many ways that we hope to do that for folks who are coming far and wide.
At AFI Fest, I know it stands for the American Film Institute, but that doesn't strictly mean we're only programming American films. Again, we try to have as many different countries, languages, narratives in our program at all times. So I wouldn't be too afraid of submitting to all types of festivals, just as long as you're doing your research on like the background and like knowing exactly what the eligibility requirements and tone of each festival is.
Yeah, at Nashville, we don't have separate programs for international versus US titles. They're all in the same programs together, which is something, I don't know, I find really exciting. I think, international film is a huge part of, my programming ethos and what I'm bringing to Nashville. It's kind of, the Chicago International Film Festival is where I started, and it really instilled in me the importance of international film here in the United States. And so, I don't know, for us in Nashville, it's all kind of considered the same, and we love it. So
yeah, we program the same way at South by as well, because we want to reflect. It's an international festival, and so we want to reflect that in the art, because our audience is also international. And as everything were just American films, it'd be a very boring film festival.
Yeah. Sorry, American filmmakers. Yeah.
Yes. You give plenty of opportunities.
I agree. When we're putting our programs together, one of the things we're looking at all the time, my charts are color-coded like crazy, and one of the things I'm looking is to make sure that we don't have 6 American films in one. I want like either 4 and 3, so that we're seeing that same diversity I was talking about tonally. Also, where are they coming from? Who are the artists? What voices are we representing in each program?
All right, I want to give a